First to tell you yesterday and break down for you how a website that's very credible, that's run bin Laden tapes in the past, is actually encouraging Al-Qaeda to attack the United States again before the election. With that news in the backdrop, let me now tell you about this. One of the most respected law enforcement officials in the United States, the police chief of Los Angeles, is now uttering a very similar warning. Listen to the Chief William Brattan's word. Here they are. I'm going to read them to you. Bin Laden probably realizes it could become markedly more difficult to paint the United States as the great Satan with a new president who is admired internationally. I wonder who he's talking about. The remaining days before the elections should be seen as a time of high threat, and state and local police should be on high alert. Let's turn things over to Mike Brooks. You hear that? What do you think?
Absolutely. I think the main key word right now is vigilance. And I think Bill Brattan is right on target. You've got Los Angeles, a major city, New York City. Whenever you go up there to New York right now, Rick, they've always been on orange, if you will, since 9/11.
Right.
And, you know, most cities are not. But you see the emergency services, the different teams moving around the city on a regular basis just in case they have to have a mobilization.
If it comes, people out there would like from a guy like you to know,
Sure,
in what form would that attack come?
Well, you know, we don't know. Right now, we have over 100 joint terrorism task forces here in the United States that are on top of any kind of threats, any kind of intelligence that comes in. They run the leads down. Sometimes we never even hear about them.
But there's a difference between an organization and a lone wolf.
Right, there is. And let me just talk about Al-Qaeda. It's not Osama bin Laden. If you cut the head off of bin Laden to kill him, it's a mindset. But what law enforcement worries about here in the United States mostly are people, as I call them, as you said, lone wolves. These are people who are disenfranchised with the government, have their own agenda, are sitting home, taking all this in about the election, and they decide, I'm going to do something about it. You know, you look at lone wolves. Timothy McVeigh, you know, he and Nichols, his partner, they were basically lone wolves. You know, and that's what concerns law enforcement the most. Well, the people that fly under the radar.
Let's talk about law enforcement, because I'm going to have as a guest Richard Clarke on in just a moment.
Right.
I just finished reading his book, and he says we have spent so much money in Afghanistan and Iraq that if we'd used at least a portion of that money here in the United States, we would have a better determined and defense system to try and stop something like that. Is our system in the United States, the New York Police Department that you mentioned, the Los Angeles Police Department,
the D.C. Police Department,
the D.C., Miami, are they prepared? Can they handle something like this?
I think they're prepared. I think they're a hell of a lot better prepared than they were when 9/11 came along. You have more joint terrorism task forces, which takes local, state, and federal law enforcement and puts them all together to focus on their particular area when it comes to dealing with terrorism, anti-terrorism, and counterterrorism. Before, you know, you had some of these small departments. You know, Oklahoma City, would they ever think that they would have a terrorist attack?
Timothy McVeigh was a lone wolf.
Absolutely.
Eric Rudolph was a lone wolf.
Eric Rudolph, here during the Olympics, you know. These are the lone wolves that fly under the radar. Yes, here in the Olympics in 1996, they were ready for any kind of attack. SWAT teams, FBI, they were ready. But it was Timothy McVeigh by himself with a backpack that put it over right across the street here, and a bomb went off.
And that's what makes it so difficult to stop. But when we look at Al-Qaeda, and I think this is what a lot of folks at home are wondering about, and I kind of try and speak through their voice on something like this. People think that Al-Qaeda is an organization that can call shots all over the world. Can they?
They can. You know, there's some people say when they put out some of these videos, there's keywords, you know, they kind of try to break it down, and that's what the intelligence experts try to do. Do they call shots? You know, some people say yes. I don't know if they can or not. I think Mr. Clarke will be able to talk to that.
Well, let's do it. I'm going to bring him in. Hold on. I'm going to bring him in. Richard Clarke, are you there?
Yes, I am, Rick.
You know, I'm doing well, sir. It's great to have you on the show. And, you know, we were just having this conversation. I was just reading your book. Actually, I got it on tape, and I go jogging with it. But and that part where you said that the United States had not had enough money or failed from a bureaucratic standpoint to actually pick up a system that would protect us more here at home. Could you amplify that thought for us?
Well, right after 9/11, we sat down and listed once again the major vulnerabilities in the United States. And they're things like subway systems. Terrorists have attacked the subways in London, Moscow, Paris, Tokyo, Mumbai, Madrid. We haven't had a major terrorist attack in the United States on the subway system yet, but they're an obvious target. Subway systems today are about as vulnerable as they were on 9/11. We haven't done very much to improve their security. There's a list of about 15 or 20 areas like that, chemical plants, refineries, ports, where we know there were vulnerabilities, and we really haven't fixed them. The Homeland Security Department has begun to do things in some of these areas, but it really hasn't brought anything to closure, with the major exception, of the good job that TSA has done on passenger screening.
Interestingly enough, Mike Brooks is just writing on a piece of paper over here, and I'm looking over my shoulder. Shopping centers?
You know, with the holidays coming up, Rick, and I think Richard will agree with me, with the holidays coming up, you're looking at vulnerabilities. You're looking at shopping centers, which is one of the most highly populated centers during the holiday season, and you look at it as a vulnerability for either, terrorist explosion, guns and explosives, the main tools of terrorism, or a chemical, biological kind of thing.
And protected, oftentimes, I hate to use this term because it might get me in trouble, but it's a term that's thrown out there by rent-a-cops.
But you know what, though? The international...
Richard, are we wrong?
No, I think that you're not wrong, but the fundamental issue is not throwing guards up everywhere.
No.
The fundamental issue is getting inside the terrorist organizations, because by the time that they're pulling up to the shopping mall, it's too late. You want to penetrate the organizations. And so far, FBI has penetrated a lot of organizations that turned out really not to be terrorist organizations, like the group in Miami, the group in Lodi, the group in Lackawanna. These were wannabes. They weren't serious terrorist organizations. And that leaves us with two options. Either the FBI can't find the real ones, or there are not real ones in the United States. And that latter case may be true, because after all, the team that came in to do 9/11 was brought in from outside. So one major question, are there teams in the United States? Are there teams that have been brought in recently? At the moment, as far as I can tell, the FBI, other intelligence agencies do not have any credible information that lead them to believe that an attack might take place. Why are we asking this, though? Because in 2004, bin Laden did try to influence the U.S. election. Whether or not he succeeded, who knows? But he issued a videotape on Halloween, a few days before the election, that implied that he supported Senator Kerry. He knew that if he seemed to be supporting Senator Kerry, that would help President Bush, and it did. So we know he likes to try to influence elections. We could look forward perhaps to another videotape like that, or an attack. Now, an attack is a heck of a lot harder for them to stage than the easy job of putting out a videotape.
That's interesting that you would say that. Let's close on that. You had one thing you wanted to say before we went to break. I saw you over there, and you were kind of... we'll leave it, and we'll pick it up on the other side. All right. And here's the point, and this is what we're going to be picking up in just a moment with Richard Clarke. If al-Qaeda carries out a big operation against American interest, what I'm reading you now is the quote from the website. It goes on to say, this act will be in support of McCain. There's more to that. We'll be right back. We'll throw it at Richard Clarke. We'll get his reaction, something all Americans should be thinking about these days.